Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are doing really well. Today I want to talk to you about overcoming this feeling of overwhelmness and avoiding procrastination. I think we have all been there where we have felt the sense of anxiety and this feeling of being overwhelmed with everything that you have to do in terms of juggling both your personal and your professional life. And that can lead to a lot of procrastination because when you feel overwhelmed, you just don't have that motivation, that discipline, and that drive to get everything that you need to do done. So today I want to share with you some of my top tips that I have learned over the years and that I use today to overcome procrastination and to get rid of that feeling of being overwhelmed. Now, personally, I think that procrastination comes from two main reasons. The first is that you are doing something that you do not love. I think it is normal to be procrastinating about things that have deadlines or things that seem overwhelming at a glance or that you've been putting off for a while and now it just seems untangible. But I think it's really important to reflect on the fact that not every single thing that you have to do is going to be something that you love. It might absolutely add up, and if you find that a lot of what you're doing on a daily basis is not something that you love, you might be in the wrong career. But that being said, it is absolutely normal to be procrastinating about things, of jobs that you love to do, of things that you love to do, because not everything is 100%. And so just take that moment to step back and try to reflect, am I finding things difficult all the time, or is this just in this situation at this point in time? The second reason why I think that people procrastinate is that they are in need of a rest. They need to take a step back, they need to recharge before they reach burnout if they haven't reached it already. So procrastination really is a bit of an enigma, but I think it's really important for you to figure out where you are. Are you in that place where you need to take a step back and rest? Or are you in that place where you need to, in the short term, get the things done and find that drive and that motivation to overcome this thing, these tasks that you've been putting off because you don't love doing them, and then perhaps take a moment to reflect in the long term if it is a job or a career or a part of your life that you need to reevaluate and change for the better. Now, whenever we're dealing with procrastination, it always leads to a feeling of anxiety, a state of being overwhelmed. So what can you do when you feel that way? Well, my first tip is to start off with a brain dump. Now, I don't know if this is a technical term. I've certainly heard about it on lots of productivity content, whether that's on YouTube or in books or blog posts that I read. But a brain dump is one of my favorite things to get started with when I find myself in that moment of being overwhelmed and procrastinating about most things that I have to do. So what is a brain dump? A brain dump is essentially where you write down every single thing that is loose in your mind and that is floating around and you just don't really know how to take control of it. So by writing everything down on paper, you start to visualize what are the things that are loose in your head. A brain dump can be really effective because by seeing what is in your mind, you can start to categorize and to organize those activities. So say, for example, you realize that there are a bunch of household chores that keep floating around in your mind of things that you want to do, but you keep avoiding them. And so I find that by writing them all on a brain dump, you can start to compile a shorter list of household chores. And then you realize that maybe you had all of these emails that you needed to respond to. And so what you can start to do is to pick out all of those mini tasks that were floating in your head about emails and then grab those and make a second list. And you get the gist. I think it's really important to do a brain dump so you can visually see everything that's in your mind and then you can take action and start to categorize them. Now, it's really important that you don't just stop at a brain dump. A brain dump can look overwhelming. You can end up having brain dumps that are hugely, insanely long lists. And you want to avoid having a brain dump as a to-do list. What a brain dump is really good for is a starting point. So what I'd recommend for you to do next is to just sit down, reflect on your brain dump and pull out what are the most urgent tasks, what needs to be done today and what can wait. So after you've done that reflection, you should hopefully have a to-do list for your day with some of the most important tasks for you to get done. What I then suggest for you to do is to have a running list by category of things that you can then access when you find a pocket of time. So for example, you can have a professional to-do list. Within your professional to-do list, you can have things to do if you are a teacher, for example, to do with your admin, to do with your lesson planning, to do with specific classes, to do with meeting notes, to do with learning your job. And if it's your personal life, you can have smaller sections to do with house chores, to do with errands, etc. So I think it's just really important that you look at things holistically. You then categorize those tasks by most important and most urgent for you to get done there and then to have other mini to-do lists that you can access throughout the week to then get those things done. My second tip is to then get started with the small things. I find that if you start to get a little bit overwhelmed by looking at all of those things, try to figure out what are the things that are going to take me a couple of minutes or 5 minutes. Can I get them done right now? And just get up and go and do those things. And I find that if you start to do those smaller things, it's going to give you a boost of energy, and that's going to get you a little bit more motivated to then tackle those bigger things that you've been putting off. And actually, David Allen, in his book called Getting Things Done, he's got a 2-minute rule, which I am a massive fan of. And he essentially just suggests that if something takes you 2 minutes or less, you should just get it done. And I find that if I spend 10-20 minutes getting all of those little things done, I can cross off so many things, and that just builds up that momentum. And then I can really sit down and focus on those bigger tasks that consume a lot of mental energy. Now, some of my favourite small things to do are definitely related to house chores and to my email inbox. I find that responding to a quick email can take me a minute or two, and also getting the laundry in can also take me a minute or two. So I like to start off with those. They also tend to be a little bit more physical, and so I just feel a little bit more energized. Now, my third tip is to break things down. Chances are now you're sat down and you've cleared off all of those smaller things to do, you've categorized your brain dump, you've got a really clear idea of what is a priority, but now you're sat there and you've got the 6,000 word essay to write and you don't know where to start. So my suggestion when you are in this place is to break that bigger task down into smaller little things. It's really important that you don't write a hugely overwhelming big task as one to-do item. So let's take that 6,000 essay as an example. If you have to write 6,000 words, you're not going to sit down and do that all in one go. So have a think about what specific actions do you need to do to get to that outcome. You need to get your reading done. You need to write an introduction, a main text, and a conclusion. You then need to do the proofreading, the formatting, the editing. Then you need to do the reference list. So you can automatically start to see that a big task will always have a smaller number of actions to be able to get them done. Now, something that's really important when you're breaking down the big task into smaller chunks is to be mindful of how long those things should take you. So say you're going to sit down for an afternoon and you know that you are already feeling overwhelmed and procrastinating, but hopefully you're feeling less overwhelmed because you did that brain dump, you got clear of all of the smaller things off your list, so you're feeling a little bit boosted in terms of your energy and your adrenaline, and you're feeling pumped and motivated to get to work. It's really important to be mindful of how long you are going to be focusing on. And this is where I really like to use the Pomodoro method, which is essentially a certain time interval of really focused work followed by a small break. And typically the Pomodoro method is 25 minutes followed by a 5-minute break, but I personally like to change that length of time depending on the task that I'm doing, because also it does take you a while to get into a zone of productive work. So it's really important that if it is something that is very heavy in terms of your mental energy, that you are able to get into that productive zone and that you're able to stay there for a good amount of time. If you're going to start off with something like getting your reading done, again, that might seem overwhelming. So write down a small list of actions in terms of what are you going to read? Are you going to read 1 paper, 2 papers? Are you going to read for 1 hour? Are you going to summarize 5 papers into a Word document, a full page? So be really specific with what that breaking that big task down looks like. What are the actions you need to do? How long is it going to take you? And how can you then chunk that over the next few days? I find that breaking a really big task into manageable chunks is just going to give you a boost of energy and adrenaline, but also give you a sense of comfort that doesn't actually add to you feeling overwhelmed or anxious about meeting that deadline. My 4th tip is a really important one. It's to go outside and go and get some fresh air. Move your body. It's really, really important for your mind, for your brain, for your soul, for your body, to be able to breathe in fresh air, to feel energized, to feel clear-minded. So just take a step outside, go and get some fresh air, go and run an errand, go and meet a friend. It doesn't need to be something that takes too long, but just putting on your shoes, putting on your coat, or if it's sunny outside, a hat or whatever it is, just stepping outside, taking a quick walk, a brisk walk, seeing nature, seeing people, seeing activity, breathing in that air, popping back home, sitting down and getting your work done is going to feel so much better. I also think just the fact of seeing a different scenery is going to get your brain cells working, because I think what we do when we are feeling overwhelmed and anxious and procrastinating is that we sit down and we don't really change our scenery very much. We try to find some comfort in what's familiar. So whether that is binging Netflix or binging YouTube videos, I think it's just really important to change things up and to mix them up. And so switch those distractions off and just go outside. So my tip number 5, my very last one, is to make sure that you eat and drink water. Don't underestimate the power of this. We are human beings. We need to fuel ourselves to have energy in order to get things done. And water is the building blocks of that. Nothing can happen in your body without water. So make sure you chug down a really nice, big, fresh glass of water, and make sure that you're eating at regular intervals throughout the day, and that food is nutritious and wholesome. Sometimes I find that if I am feeling overwhelmed, all I need to do is get into the kitchen and cook something really wholesome and beautiful and nourishing, and then just sit down and eat it mindfully. And that just sort of makes me a lot more present and a lot more grateful and a lot more active in the process of cultivating some form of productivity in my day, because if I was able to eat well, I am able to work well. Those are my 5 top tips. I hope you have found them useful, and I hope that I've given you some encouragement and some motivation to go and get started with what you are feeling overwhelmed with and what you have been procrastinating about. Remember that is short-lived. All you need to do is a small little quick change, a small action to make a big difference, and you've got the power to do that. So go and get started, and good luck. I will see you really soon. Take care. Bye.